I hope you would agree that it has been it's been a very interesting conference. A good topic, some lively discussion. We were tossing up about the wisdom of combining the fleet review and all those activities with PAC 13 and the C-Power conference. There's no doubt that it's changed the tenor of it a little bit from previous conferences. But I think if you stand back and look at it holistically, it's been an overall positive thing to do. And I'd like to thank our speakers from here and overseas for their contribution throughout the conference. It's not easy to get away, and I appreciate those who have got away and made the effort to come here. Now, I'm not going to summarise the entire conference. I wouldn't do that to you. There have been some highlights though, and I think this last session was definitely in that category, and I don't need to recap on that. The other big highlight for me is that I think these sorts of conferences show, if we go back to the theme, naval diplomacy at work. There's been a lot of naval diplomacy going on throughout this conference. In fact, many of us have spent the entire conference doing naval diplomacy, and the discussions that we've had in the margins and in the back rooms are really important parts of this sort of gathering. I think the Chief of Army's conference presentation is one that I would encourage you all to think about deeply. I have managed to, I think, provide a copy to all of my counterparts and their representatives so that they can pass to their own Chiefs of Army or Chiefs of General Staff. And I know George is going to do that. And ask them why they can't make speeches like that. So I think David Morrison's going to be pretty unpopular wandering around the armies of the world in the next year or so. But I thought he made some really telling points. The sort of speech that someone said to me, well, why didn't you give that speech? I said, because he was going to give it. And, him giving it is so much more powerful than me giving it. If I give it, it sounds like a broken record. If he gives it, people sit up and go, wow. The fact that we're saying exactly the same things is irrelevant. It's the fact that he stood up and he gave it. And what's more, I can tell you, having worked with him pretty closely over the last few years, he believes it. It's not just, he's not just mouthing some sort of line here. This is what he believes. And I think his assessment around the difficulty in shifting our strategic culture is a very important piece. And there's Mike Evans, who many of you will know, is a very, very wise thinker, has written a new piece for the Army History Conference last week, which I would also suggest you get a hold of, because a lot of what was in David's speech on Monday was gleaned from that. Tom Menken's exploration of the psychology of naval diplomacy I think was a challenging piece for people, and I hope that it was thought-provoking. Admiral Haney's speech said, take away that while you can't surge ships, you can surge ships, you can't surge trust. It has to be built and nurtured over time. The First Sea Lord has continued his discussion, his theme in recent months around sea choice. And I think, again, that is something that we all need to pay attention to. And finally, Kim Beasley's wide-ranging survey of the strategic background to force structure, I think was, as we would all have come to expect from Kim, an excellent piece of work. So I look forward to seeing the papers promptly. I look forward to the C-Power Centre publishing it promptly so that we can get the learnings out there for everyone to make use of. Now at this point I would wish you safe travel and that would be it, but I have a couple of other things I want to do. About 14 months ago I started to explore publicly a way for us to work our way out of what had become a very binary and confrontational discussion about the two major schools of strategic thought in Australia, being the Continentalist School and the Expeditionary School. I had a view that neither of these were very useful in the Australian geostrategic circumstance, and that there really was, to steal a phrase from the UK, there was a third way. And that third way, in my mind, was a genuine maritime school of strategic thought, which of course has been the topic of this particular session. The initial response from those couple of speeches last year were quite positive. We then launched on a series of seminars and workshops around the country, across defence, across government, and with international participants, to try and unpack this concept of a maritime school of strategic thought for Australia, and to see where that led. Where it's led is this book from the Sea-Power Centre, which is being launched this morning. It has a range of very good views about the topic, and I think it will be available on the Sea-Power Centre website today. I think there's Justin. Either today or tomorrow. So if you want to download a version, that's fine. Otherwise, we can get you a hard copy of it. I think it's a great synopsis of the workshops, and it helps, I think, try and further the evolution of a genuine maritime school of strategic thought for Australia, which I think is desperately needed, and we need to get out of this very confrontational approach that we have had in the past. So I officially launched that. I'd also like to launch a DVD, The History of the Royal Australian Navy, Volumes 1 and 2 from 1778 to 1945. This has been under production for a couple of years now, and I've got to say it's an excellent piece of work, and I'd like to thank our naval historians, our imagery specialists, Peter Ryan, who is the producer and the director, and Chris Young, the editor. It tells the story of our Navy over that period quite well. Our next project will be to update and go for Volume 3, which will be 1945 through to the present day. But I commend this to you. It's a very professionally done DVD, and I officially launched that as well. So on that note, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for your participation. Thank you to the Sea-Power Centre staff, to the Navy events staff, to the wonderful range of our young officers, our midshipmen, who have done such a sterling job both on the registration desk and in and around the venue. I really appreciate the effort that you've all put in. I hope you've got something out of it. And I hope that you all enjoy this afternoon's finale for the IFR in watching 4,500 sailors from around the world marching down George Street in one final act of naval diplomacy for this week. Thank you very much.